Equals I stood by the window, staring out at the gray sky over Springfield, Ohio, as a cold wind rattled the branches of the old oak tree in my front yard. The sky mirrored my mood, heavy and oppressive. Today was the day. Just thinking about it made my heart race. I could hear the muffled sounds of children laughing and playing in the distance, but the warmth of those innocent sounds could not seep into the walls I had built around myself. I wanted to forget, to bury the bitterness deep within so I would no longer feel the prickle of revenge clawing at my insides. But I knew in this moment I could not ignore it any longer. My name is Clara Winslow, and today I would start to make them pay. Clara, are you coming? My neighbor Tim's voice pulled me back to reality. He was standing on the porch, bundled up in a red jacket, his breath puffing out in white clouds. He looked like he was waiting for me to join him, and part of me felt guilty that I was holding him back. But he had no idea about the storm swirling inside of me. I will be there in a second, I hollered back, my voice sounding a little too sharp. I took a deep breath and turned away from the window, trying to shove my dark thoughts back down into the depths where I hoped they would stay buried forever. But there were some things you could never let go of completely, and my past was one of them. I stepped into the living room, a room that once radiated joy. Now it felt empty and haunted. The walls were decorated with pictures of happier times. My wedding day, my son's first birthday, family vacations, snapshots of a life that had been ripped away from me, all thanks to the betrayal of people I used to trust. How could I have let them get close enough to hurt me? Part of me wanted to scream, to shake my fists at the sky, but I knew I wouldn't do that today. I was not here to lose myself in grief. No, today was about meeting with Tim and pretending that everything was okay. He had no clue what I was planning. It wasn't fair to pull him into my darkness when he was so eager to light up my world with his bright spirit. He was the kind of friend that you could lean on when times got tough, but if he only knew what I was going through. As I opened the front door, the wind whipped through my hair, pulling me momentarily out of my thoughts. Hey. Sorry, I lost track of time, I said to Tim, forcing a smile on my face. Even with my strained nerves, he lit up like a Christmas tree. It's okay, Clara, you ready to go? The kids are waiting for us at the park. The weather is kind of decent and I want to enjoy it while I can. Tim's infectious cheeriness lulled me into a calmer state for a moment, but the park was the last place I wanted to be right now. A simple place like that made me vulnerable, especially when I'd be facing the judgment of others. The loud whispers, pointing fingers, the pitying gazes as they surely wondered how I was coping after the tragedy. How naive they must have been to believe that time could heal those wounds. Yeah, let's go, I said, forcing my feet to follow him down the pathway. The gravel crunched beneath our shoes. I could feel the weight of judgment hanging over me like a dark cloud, a feeling that had become all too familiar. So how's Emily? I asked, trying to shift the conversation playgrounds away from me. Still with her gymnastics practice, you know how it is. She's doing great though, just got a trophy at the last meet. Tim's eyes sparkled as he spoke about his daughter, and I couldn't help but smile a little. The love he had for his family seeped into his words. What about you? How is everything with, well, he trailed off, not wanting to push too hard. Good, good, you know how it is. Just trying to get through the day, I replied tightly, feeling my muscles tense at the mention of the gaping hole left in my life. But I'm working on it. I wanted to scream that I wasn't just trying to get through the day, I was preparing for retribution. I wanted to settle the score. But how could I tell him that? As we approached the park, I spotted the familiar green swings swaying lazily in the wind. Memories flooded my mind uninvited. Visions of my son, Oliver, laughing as he kicked his legs in the air, his bubblegum laughter ringing through the air while he soared into the sky. My heart ached fiercely at the reminder of what I had lost. Hey, Clara, over here, called Tim, waving his arm excitedly. I forced myself to follow his gaze as he pointed toward the sandbox where his daughter Emily was building a castle worthy of royalty. She looked up, beaming, her golden hair shining in the soft light as she saw her father. Come on, let's go say hi. I walked up beside him, putting on a brave face as I crouched beside the castle that was still taking shape. The sun had come out a little and turned the park into a shimmering oasis, distracting me from my darker thoughts for a moment. I smiled at Emily and patted the sand. Wow, that is looking amazing. I've never seen such a grand castle before. Emily beamed, her cheeks dimpling with joy. Thanks, Clara, I'm going to make it taller. Just wait and see. Will you help me? She looked up at me with those big, hopeful eyes. Of course I will. I'll be the queen of your castle, I said with a light chuckle, and as the words left my mouth, I felt a slight sting in my heart. I couldn't shake the rush of emotions that seemed to wash over me. What would that have looked like for Oliver? Would I have dashed through the sand with him, building our own fortress of dreams? Sweet, let's build a moat around it too. It will keep the dragons away. She was full of energy, and for a brief moment I found myself lost in her enthusiasm. Exactly, every great castle needs protection. As I began to help her pile sand, I couldn't help but see shadows dancing in the corners of my mind. Every scoop of sand felt like a reminder that there were monsters attacking from within. I wasn't building a castle, I was constructing a facade. Hey, Clara, Tim said, pulling me back from my building fantasy. Emily and I were talking about going to that new pizza place later. You should come with us. I think it would be good to get out and eat something for a change. Pizza. A warm, cheesy slice sounded heavenly, but the invitation felt heavy on my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in my own life. I'm not sure if I can. I have some things I need to do later. Maybe next time. I tried to sound convincing, but I could feel the disappointment from Tim. I quickly flashed a smile to make up for it, but I felt like I was slipping away from him with every moment I was unable to connect. Okay, but you have to promise me next time you will join us, all right? His voice was light, but I could sense the concern beneath it. Tim had always been the kind of friend who cared too much, maybe even too much for his own good, and that was something I valued but resented all the same. Yeah, definitely, I promise. I hoped that later I could trick him enough to believe those words, but the reality was that I was becoming increasingly adept at lying, even to myself. As the afternoon drifted on, I tried to enjoy the moment, the laughter, the sand slipping between my fingers, the voices of joyful children playing around me. But in the depths of my heart, I felt the shadows creeping closer and closer. How long could I continue to play this charade? Did anyone see the darkness lurking behind my facade? After a while, as the sun hung low in the sky, painting it with hues of orange and pink, I excused myself from Tim and Emily, my mind racing with the plan I had started to formulate. I have to run an errand. I will get back to you soon, I said, trying to infuse my voice with the semblance of normality. All right, Clara, see you later. Stay safe, Tim called, oblivious to the internal storm brewing inside of me. Yeah, you too, I hollered back, but in my heart I felt as though I was uprooting myself from the life I once knew. I headed toward the car, my steps quickening, my breath coming quicker as thoughts of the past began to pull me under. Sitting in the car, I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the cool glass. Images washed over me of happier days, days that now felt like shadows in the photograph as they slowly faded. I couldn't retreat anymore. I had to confront the darkness and shame that had engulfed my life. The people who had wronged me, there was no escaping their betrayal, but I felt a fire spark in my chest, igniting me from within. Today was not just about survival, today was the dawn of something new. Taking a deep breath, I gripped the steering wheel tighter as determination flooded my veins. I drove away from the park, my heart beating in time with my resolve. I glanced back once at Tim and Emily, too wrapped up in their world to notice the storm racing toward them. But storms always pass, they only leave behind a clean slate ready for what comes next. As I pulled away, I felt the familiar ache of insufficient closure, but I also felt the twinge of a burgeoning plan. It was time to reclaim my life, to put the pieces back together in a new way. If they thought I was weak, they had another thing coming. The drive back home felt like an eternity, each second spent replaying memories, the betrayal, the loss, and the anger that simmered beneath the surface. But emerging from the depths of despair was a resolve stronger than I had ever known. The course was set, the price for my peace of mind would be paid in full. As I entered my house, I was filled with an urgency that tugged at my heart. The clock was ticking, and I could no longer afford to feel lost. Today was the beginning of a new chapter, the one where I would become the architect of my own revenge. I had plans to make things together. I would not just seek justice, I would weave a web so intricate that no one would see it coming. And somewhere deep inside, I could feel that the storm was about to break. This time, it wouldn't be a storm of despair. This time, it would rain retribution. As the door clicked shut behind me, the sound echoed in the empty hallway like a gunshot. It was a strange sort of sound to hear after I had just left the office of Tyler Eastman, a name that used to soothe my anger, now twisted into something sinister. I leaned against the cold wall, letting my breath settle before I plunged back into the churning tide of my emotions. It was all coming to a head, wasn't it? The room around me faded, leaving only Tyler's smug face imprinted in my mind. I could almost hear his laugh, that mocking chuckle that had pierced through my confidence like a rusty blade. Clara, you really thought you could outsmart me? The thought swam in my mind, dragging memories with it, office parties where I had to laugh at his obnoxious jokes, the promotions that slipped through my fingers as I watched him rise. I had been so naive, so eager to believe he was a friend, not the fiend that he truly was. What's going on with you? The voice jolted me from my thoughts. It was Lily, my friend and confidant, appearing from the break room with a steaming mug of coffee in her hands. She had a knack for reading my moods, and today was no different. Her brow furrowed with concern, the kind that felt motherly yet incredibly annoying. I forced a smile, making it bright and fake, even though my insides twisted. Just the usual, another day in paradise. Lily rolled her eyes, her hands on her hips. Paradise? More like a nightmare, don't give me that. You look like you just walked off a horror film set. I glanced at her, the shape of her face soft, her brown hair cropped close. Lily had always been straightforward, but now her attempt to illuminate my darkness felt like a spark on dry kindling. No, seriously, it's Tyler, I sighed, rubbing my temple. He just went through my project proposal and shot it down. He claims it's too ambitious. Can you believe that? Lily scoffed. The man's a moron, and he's threatened by you. You've always been the one with the better ideas. My heart raced, both at the truth and the weight of those words. I had poured my soul into the last project, envisioned the results, imagined the applause, but instead I received Tyler's dismissal. It's more than that, Lily. It feels personal. He's trying to undermine everything I've worked for. I took a deep breath, steadying myself while my palms grew clammy. And today I realized that this just can't stand any longer. Lily's eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean, it's time for a change. I'm not going to lay back and watch while he ruins my future. I have to fight back. I could feel the fire in my stomach flare up, fueled by determination. The notion of fighting back had taken root, and I could almost taste the bitterness of revenge as it lingered at the back of my throat. Clara, you want to fight him? I know you're furious, but revenge isn't the answer. It'll end up burning you in the long run, Lily cautioned, her voice soft but firm. Turning to Lily, I caught her gaze, but in that moment seeing sympathy swell in her eyes only sparked my annoyance. And what would you have me do? Just let him walk all over me? Sit back and watch him reap the rewards of my hard work? That's not who I am. My heart thundered, the echoes of my own words reverberating inside my chest. All right, calm down before you set off a tornado in here, she murmured, raising her hands in surrender. You just need a plan, right? You can't just go off on a wild goose chase. A plan? Yes, that's what I need, but I need to do something that'll teach him a lesson, not just some petty workplace retaliation. I want him to feel what I felt. My words rushed out, igniting memories of feeling small under his domineering presence, going through motions while he laughed in my face. Lily studied me, her brows knitting together. What exactly do you have in mind? The curiosity sparkling in her eyes fed the fire of my reckless ambition. Well, I know he's been cozying up to our boss, and I happen to have a little dirt about their friendly meetings, I confessed, a sly smile creeping upon my lips. How many times have I caught him leaving my boss's office looking smug? A little tip to HR, and I can show him what it means to have his reputation tarnished. Did I really mean that? The thrill of the idea twisted inside me, churning like an angry sea. Lily blinked slowly, shakes of uncertainty rippling through her. Are you sure that would be the right move? It's the only move, I insisted, feeling the weight of the world settling on my shoulders. Look, I have suffered one too many professional slights at his hands. You know what he once said to me? To stick to being the supportive female in the office. How condescending was that? That's beyond messed up, Clara. I get that he is a total jerk, but do you want to stoop down to his level? Do I have a choice? Fighting fire with fire is sometimes the only way to win, I said haughtily, realizing I hadn't fully thought this through. But the moment was fierce, and it felt good to splatter all my frustrations to Lily, to hear a sound in which I might feel understood. Lily sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of my duel against the unjust forces of my world. Despite this, I still couldn't understand why I felt so alone in pursuing this. All right, she finally relented, sighing dramatically. But if you're going to do this, at least promise me you'll be smart about it. There's nothing worse than a plan that is half-cooked. Trust me, it'll be perfect, I said, a hint of excitement surging like a wave in my veins. I'm going to launch that tip, maybe something juicy that'll land Tyler in the spotlight. And you know what? He'll realize I am not someone he can just walk over anymore. Just promise me, Lily implored. No impulsive decisions, you've got to be careful, the consequences. I know, consequences, schmonsequences, I interjected with a hint of flippancy to mask my rising anxiety. Besides, who cares about consequences when it comes to revenge? As those words escaped my lips, a wave of unease washed over me. What was I willing to give up to get back at Tyler? The enormity of my growing desire clawed at my stomach. What about your job? Your reputation can be on the line too if you aren't careful. Lily leaned in, a confident veil shrouding her true doubts. What about if it gets back to you? I waved my hand dismissively. If I can take him down, then it is worth it. Think about it, Lily. I've earned every inch of my place in that office. It is mine to claim. I refuse to let him keep it. She sighed again, letting the silence linger heavily between us as I began to ponder my next move. For a moment, I imagined what it would be like to turn the tables. It would be exhilarating, wouldn't it, to see him squirm, to see that arrogant smirk wiped off his face like a painting washed away by rain. Then let's formulate a strategy, I finally declared, feeling invigorated and lighter. That spirit I can work with, Lily smiled, crossing her arms, a spark of mischief igniting in her eyes. Dare I say it's about time you took charge of your life, so let's get evil. How do we do this? I leaned in, adrenaline surging, feeling a tingle of excitement as I began weaving a tapestry of intrigue. The smile across my face grew wider as I envisioned each thread of our plot. I would start by gathering secrets, knowing the vines of gossip that flourished within the office. I've seen how he taps his ego, the way he struts around. If I can pinpoint those cracks in his facade, then, oh, we'll make a game out of it. Like a game of chess? More like checkmate, I grinned, my mind racing, cranking out ideas, each one more deliciously ugly than the last. My heart raced as I realized the plan was just emerging, but with every beat, the smallest trace of a shadow loomed above me. Did I really want to be the architect of my own plight? Or could I rise from ashen ruins instead? But for now, I buried those questions, diving deep into my scheme, my senses ignited by revenge like a campfire in the dead of winter. Tomorrow we'll start with the water cooler, I exclaimed, my tone layered with intention. It's the epicenter of all gossip, right? I'll casually ask questions about Tyler's recent projects, see who blinks first. Lily's eyes glimmered. And I'll help, we can make a killing with this. Whispers of doubt, just enough to stir the pot. It's going to feel like old times, winning this little battle of wits. A thrill surged through me, the victory of stealing his thunder felt like fireworks exploding in my chest. This was going to be my moment. I could almost visualize Tyler's face as he unraveled in his own web of deceit. It was sweet to imagine. There's nothing more dangerous than a woman scorned, right? I concluded with a smirk, feeling unstoppable for the first time in years. With each step toward this dark path, my heart thudded in rhythm with the adrenaline sizzling in the air. I knew I was walking into a storm, yet every sensation screamed for me to plunge deeper. I was ready to carve my truth, one mischievous slice at a time. With Lily by my side, I felt the game was set. The stakes were high and rising. The stage was set for a deliciously ironic tale of revenge. I stood at the edge of the cemetery, the once vibrant green grass now a muted shade of brown under the autumn sun. Each step I took toward my father's grave felt heavier than the last, my heart thundering in my chest, a constant reminder of why I was here. The air was filled with a biting chill, but the cold didn't touch me, my mind was set on revenge. I had plotted this moment for weeks, every detail meticulously planned. Today was about more than just sorrow, it was about closure and the satisfying taste of justice. Clenching my fists, I whispered to myself, "This is for you, Dad," and stepped into the shadowed sanctuary of the graveyard. I could see the headstone in the distance, granite cold and unyielding, a simple engraving capturing a life cut short far too soon. "Frank Winslow, loving father and friend," it read. The words twisted in my gut like a knife. It had been 1 year, and the void left in my life was raw. Every day without him felt like drowning in silence, only to be punctuated by the anger I could not express. I lowered myself to the ground, the scent of damp earth surrounding me, and traced the letters with my fingers while memories washed over me in waves. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I imagined the sound of my father's laughter, the warmth of his embrace, all the sweet moments we shared. I could almost hear him telling me, "Clara, you're stronger than you think." But he was not here now. He had been taken from me by people who thought they were above the law. They had decorated their lives with opulence and deceit while I was left with nothing but his memory and a burning desire for revenge. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me back into the present. It was a message from Jamie, my closest friend. "Clara, are you okay? I'm worried about you. Let me know if you need anything." I chewed my lip, torn between the urge to reach out and the overwhelming need to keep this journey of vengeance a solitary experience. With a heavy sigh, I typed back, "I'm fine, Jamie, just a lot on my mind." I hit send with a sense of guilt washing over me. She had been my lifeline during these dark days, but this was a burden I chose to carry alone. As I stood up, a rustle of leaves drew my attention. I turned to see a figure lingering just beyond the barrier of tombstones. It was Ethan, my father's former business partner, the man who I believed had orchestrated my father's final days filled with turmoil. Anger surged through me like molten lava, and I forced myself to breathe deeply. I couldn't let him see I was shaken. "Clara," he called out, a hint of surprise and I might even say guilt lacing his voice. "Didn't expect to see you here today." He approached me slowly, hands shoved in his coat pockets, his face shadowed by the brim of his hat. "Of course you didn't," I replied, my tone icy. "You don't bother to remember anniversaries, do you?" His eyes narrowed, and a frown creased the corners of his mouth as he glanced at my father's grave. "We can't always. Don't you dare try to justify yourself, Ethan," I snapped, feeling my heart race. "You had a hand in my father's death. You lied, you cheated, you took everything from us." He straightened, his posture defensive. "That's not fair, Clara. It wasn't just me. Your father made his own choices." "Choices? Is that what you call it? My father trusted you and you betrayed him." The words burst from me like a dam breaking, and I felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Look, I was just trying to protect the company. Things got complicated. You know how it is in business." I shook my head in disbelief, a bitter chuckle escaping my lips. "Protect the company? You mean protect your interests? You knew exactly what you were doing and you let him drown." Ethan's expression hardened, and I could see the flash of annoyance in his eyes. "You don't know the full story." "Then tell me," I pressed, taking a step closer. I wanted to provoke him, to throw him off balance as I prepared to unveil my plan. "You're always so good at bending the truth. Just tell me how you justified ruining a good man." His jaw clenched, and for a moment he seemed to struggle with his words, searching for a reason that would fit the pieces of his conscience. "It was a bad investment. A series of mistakes that would have ruined everyone, including me. I didn't have a choice," he spat, anger boiling beneath his calm facade. "But you're still standing here living in that mansion while my father is 6 feet under." My voice shook with fury, but I was determined to keep control of the situation. "You made your bed, and now you're throwing yourself into the grave with him? That's going to solve nothing." Ethan shot back, stepping forward as if to challenge me. I could see the contempt and fear stirring in his eyes, a dangerous mix of emotions that fueled my resolve. "Just wait and see, Ethan," I said, my voice lowered to a dangerous whisper. "This isn't over. You may think you have won, but I'll make sure you face the consequences of your actions." He smirked, turning away as if dismissing me. "You think you're going to scare me? You are just a scared little girl hiding behind her father's gravestone. It's pathetic." Rage flared inside me, intense and blinding. I took a deep breath, forcing my unsteady hands to stay at my sides. "I'm not afraid of you, Ethan. You underestimate me. I've got plans. Nothing pans out as you expect." He paused for a moment, glancing over his shoulder, the amusement fading from his face. "What are you planning? You think you can take me down with your empty threats? And what will you do, Ethan? Continue to hide behind your lies and wealth?" I leaned in closer, my heart racing, feeling the thrill of the confrontation. "I'm holding all the cards now and you don't even know it." A flicker of concern crossed his expression, but he quickly replaced it with arrogance. "Good luck with that. You'll only hurt yourself more in the end." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing among the headstones, the weight of his words lingering in the air like a storm cloud about to burst. I remained frozen for a moment, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps as I processed the encounter. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. I clenched my fists tighter, reminding myself of the mission at hand. I had to play this smart, keeping my emotions at bay. It was all falling into place, and soon Ethan's arrogance would be his downfall. The drive back home was a blur of thoughts, the streetlights casting shadows that danced like phantoms against the night. I rolled the window down and inhaled the cool air, letting it reset my mind, fueling my resolve. I had to contact Sarah. She was the key to everything. The plan was simple but effective. Sarah Reynolds had once been one of Ethan's confidants before she realized what a snake he truly was. Her indignation at his behavior had cost her job and reputation, and I had stumbled upon this information during my research. She had since become a whistleblower, someone willing to expose the corrupt practices that plagued us. If I could convince her to help me gather evidence against Ethan, then we could bring him to his knees. her contact information saved in my phone. I dialed, anxiously twirling my hair around my finger. A few rings later, I was met with her voice, bright but wary. Clara, is everything okay? Not really, I replied, my voice a mere whisper but laced with urgency. Can we meet? I need to talk to you about Ethan. There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. Okay, what about him? I have a plan and I need your help. I don't know, Clara. Last time we talked about him, I said I wanted to move on, and please, Sarah, I interrupted, fear bubbling within me. This is important. I can't do this alone. I need you to help me shine a light on everything he did. After another moment of silence, she sighed. Fine, where do you want to meet? I could feel hope start to bloom within me, replacing the anger I had felt only moments ago. Let's meet at Green's Diner. I can be there in 20 minutes. All right, see you then, her tone softened, but I sensed lingering hesitance. As I drove to the diner, the familiar neon lights flickered in the dark, pulling me into the memories of countless late-night conversations and laughter with friends. But tonight was different. I was on a mission, a quest that ignited a fire within me, one that would consume everything in its path. The bell above the door jingled as I entered the diner, and the smell of fried food and freshly brewed coffee enveloped me like a warm blanket. I scanned the booths until my eyes landed on Sarah, her face partially obscured by her unruly dark hair. She looked worried, and every line on her forehead showed the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. I slid into the booth across from her, the vinyl squeaking beneath me. Hey, I said quietly. Hey, Clara, she replied, her eyes widening with curiosity and concern. You look really stressed. I nodded, biting my lip as I prepared to launch into the details. I went to my dad's grave today and I ran into Ethan. That guy still haunts you. What did he say? She frowned, concern etched into her features. He's as arrogant as ever, claiming he did what he had to do. I spat, taking a deep breath to steady my racing thoughts. But I'm done letting him manipulate me. What do you mean? Sarah leaned in closer, intrigued but cautious. I have a plan to expose him. I need your help to gather evidence. I know you have connections. My voice grew fervent. What do you know about his business practices? I believe he's involved in a lot of shady dealings. She hesitated, her gaze drifting away as if weighing the consequences of what I was asking. Then she brought her eyes back to me, a flicker of determination igniting in them. I know more than I've told you. He's been hiding a lot, Clara. I was too scared to speak up when it happened, but now, the time has come to make him pay, Sarah. We can't let him continue ruining lives, I urged, my heart pounding in anticipation. Together, we can gather proof, find witnesses, and show everyone who he really is. What do you have in mind? She asked, her tone shifting to one of curiosity tinted with caution. I have a few ideas, I replied, a plan beginning to take shape in my mind. With your insider knowledge, we can trace back everything he's covered up. Investors, questionable deals, all those people he's wronged, and then go public. We could expose him before he even knows what hit him. You really think we can do that? She asked, uncertainty still laced in her voice. Yes, I need you to be my eyes and ears, I said, leaning forward in desperation. Together, we can uncover the truth. Her gaze softened, and I could see the flicker of hope starting to take root in her heart. All right, I'll do it, she said, the determination in her voice matching the fire in my chest. Let's bring him down. The words echoed in my mind like a mantra, a promise, a commitment to this path I had chosen. The game was in motion, and I was no longer the victim. I would become the architect of my father's revenge. I stood in front of the mirror in my small Springfield apartment, my heart thumping like a war drum in my chest. The reflection that stared back at me was a blend of focus and fury. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, peering into my own green eyes, which were lit with a determination that felt almost foreign yet invigorating. My thoughts whirled, a chaotic storm of anger and resolve, because here I was, on the brink of executing my revenge, the final piece of my intricate plan sewn together through months of careful plotting. In exactly 1 hour, I would walk into the alley behind Parnell's bar, the very bar where Caleb had wronged me, had shattered my trust, and stolen away the last flicker of my belief in love. It had been 2 days since I had intertwined my fate with his, 2 days since I had lured him in with sweet promises of reconciliation. The thrill of devising the perfect trap intoxicated me. I took a deep breath, allowing the scent of jasmine from the candles to settle my mind before glancing around the room, the walls echoing with memories of decisions I had made, the nights I had cried over unreturned calls, the moments I had felt utterly lost. Clara. I muttered my name like a mantra, my voice barely above a whisper. I needed to remind myself who I was, not the heartbroken girl of yesteryear, but a woman with vengeance on her mind. Standing there, the harsh fluorescent light above illuminated the jagged edges of my emotions, reflecting both my sorrow and my fiery resolve. Suddenly, my phone vibrated on the table, startling me from my reverie. I snatched it up, glancing at the screen. It was Caleb, of course. Clara, are you ready? I got your message, his text read, simple yet infuriating. He had no idea that I was no longer the naive woman he had manipulated, nor was I waiting with open arms. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I hesitated for another moment before typing back, I will be there in 10. I pressed send and immediately felt a rush of adrenaline course through my veins. I slipped into my favorite leather jacket and rubbed my palms against the cool fabric, feeling the soft texture grounding me. My heartbeat quickened again as I recalled the last time I wore it. That night, all my hopes and dreams breathed life within me and without hesitation. But tonight was different. No longer would I bask in my fantasies. It was time to turn my dreams into nightmares for him. The streets of Springfield at dusk were painted in hues of orange and purple. As I walked down Main Street towards the bar, the familiar glow of neon lights greeted me, illuminating my path but casting shadows over my heart. I could still hear the glee of laughter spilling out of Parnell's, the clinks of glasses and raucous joy. It was always this way, a sanctuary for the free spirits who didn't know or care about the heartache lurking just under the surface. As I entered, the smell of cheap whiskey and stale beer wrapped around me like a shroud. My stomach churned at the scent, so many memories tied to this place, but I hardened my resolve, ignoring the pang of anxiety that threatened to rise. I spotted Caleb sitting at the bar, a slight smirk on his lips, his brown hair tousled casually as he flirted with the bartender. I needed to mask the urge to roll my eyes as I approached. He hadn't changed much, still the charming rogue with a disarmingly handsome smile. "Clara, you look amazing," he exclaimed, turning when he saw me. His eyes sparkled with a mixture of surprise and delight. I feigned a smile, allowing the charm to wash over me like syrup. "Thanks, Caleb." "You too," I replied, forcing a cheerful tone that felt almost alien on my tongue. The bar was too loud, too alive, and I felt the tension coiling within me, ready to strike. "Let's grab a drink," he suggested, waving his hand as if beckoning the bartender for another round. I watched as he ordered an old-fashioned, his drink of choice. I forced my expression to remain neutral, even as I felt an engulfing wave of bitterness rise within me. Nothing had changed, had it? He was still the same man with the power to charm, and I had to steady myself before he caught on. "I want whiskey neat," I said, cutting through his playful distractions. The bartender scoffed slightly but poured the drink, and I felt the warmth spread throughout me as I clutched the glass. "What's the occasion?" Caleb asked, his curiosity piqued. There was a slight edge in his tone, a hint of skepticism clawing its way to the surface, and I could sense his instincts kicking in as I leaned inconsistently on the bar, maintaining my composed demeanor. "I just thought we could talk, about us," I said, letting it hang in the air like a heavy fog, just the right amount of tension and drama. He tilted his head, his arched brow betraying a mix of intrigue and confusion. "Us, Clara, I thought we were past this." "You and I, we had our chance," he said, scoffing lightly, the hint of arrogance spilling out of his mouth as if his rejection was mere fact rather than choice. Did we really?" I shot back, my pulse racing. The layers of my carefully constructed mask began to peel away, revealing the wounded woman determined not to drown beneath his disdain. "You walked away, Caleb. You were happy to trash what we had together for a fling that meant nothing." His expression softened for just a moment, revealing unease. I thought you would just move on. I thought the passion was only fleeting." There it was, the kind of excuse born from cowardice. I drank deeply from my glass, letting the burn of whiskey fuel my courage. "Fleeting? You think I was just going to sweep it under the rug, let you waltz back into my life without a second thought?" I pressed, feeling every ounce of rage I had directed straight at him. "You broke me. Gutted me and tossed me aside, and you expect me to pretend everything is fine?" He looked taken aback, and for just a heartbeat, guilt flashed across his face. "Clara, I save it," I interrupted, cutting him off, stepping closer, my heart thudding louder with every word. "You need to understand that I am not that girl anymore, the one you could push around and manipulate. You turned your back on me when I needed you." The lights from the bar flickered in his eyes, and I could see him wrestling with the consequences of his actions. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was young. I didn't know what I wanted." His voice wavered, but it only added fuel to the fire burning within me. "Was young?" I repeated incredulously. "You think that's an excuse? You were 28, Caleb. You knew exactly what you were doing." "Maybe I was scared," he admitted in a low voice that barely reached my ears, but that fear in him only twisted the knife further into my very core. "Scared? Scared of what? Commitment? Real love? Or scared of getting caught when you were acting like a child?" I shot back, the anger spilling out of my mouth before I could restrain it. "You had to tear me apart instead of having the guts to talk it through. You used me, Caleb, and then you threw me away like my heart was nothing." The bartender approached, the air thick with an electric uncomfortableness, and I could feel the weight of other patrons' eyes darting towards us, drawn to the commotion. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except this moment as I forced Caleb to finally face the music. "Maybe I deserve this scorn," he uttered softly, but the remorse felt hollow, his bravado hanging by the thinnest of threads. "But Clara, can you blame me for wanting? Wanting what? A good time?" I interjected, the heat of my rage heating the air between us. "You had your fun at my expense. You can't put it away like nothing happened." He looked around, nervously avoiding the gazes of others in the bar. "Let's just talk somewhere private," he suggested. "This isn't the place." I wanted to laugh, to scream at the sheer audacity of him. This is what he wanted all along, wasn't it? To be isolated, away with his excuses and his charm that could melt anyone. "Follow me," I said, my teeth clenched. I didn't want him to see my hesitation. No one could see the fury brewing inside me. We slipped out through the back door into the alley, bathed in shadows, the sweet scent of rain-soaked pavement wafting around us before the thunderstorm rolled through. "What were you thinking?" I faced him, pouring every ounce of frustration into my words, the dim light casting harsh lines over his face. "You broke me and just expected me to be fine with it." He took a step forward, attempting to close the distance, but I wasn't having it. "Clara, I am sorry. I don't even know what else to say." The sincerity gripped my heart tightly, but I couldn't let myself fall into that trap. "Do you even understand what sorry means?" I demanded, my ears ringing with passion. "It means nothing to me now. Your apologies don't erase my pain. Then what do you want from me?" He pleaded, desperation cutting through his tone, and for a fleeting moment I saw the rumbled edges of his vulnerability, the mask of confidence fading slowly. It's not about what I want anymore, Caleb. It's about what you took away, the coercion, the deceit, I said, leveling my gaze at him, and I was almost surprised by the strength that filled my words. You thought I wouldn't fight back, didn't you? What do you mean? He asked, eyeing me curiously, and I took a deliberate step back. The distance between us weighted with the truth. I mean, you thought I'd just bury the hurt and let you back into my life without consequences, I said, moving purposefully closer. Well, you were wrong, and tonight you're going to find out just how wrong you've really been. What are you saying? His voice was now laced with concern, uneasiness creeping into his once casual demeanor as I watched the realization dawning in his eyes. I smirked, pulling out my phone. You will see soon enough, Caleb. You think I would go through all this without a plan? The fear, genuine and raw, rippled through his expression. Clara, wait, you don't have to do anything drastic. I'm here, let's just talk this out, he stammered, but I was already drawing closer, my finger hovering over the screen as I prepared to execute the final piece of my vengeance. Believe me, Caleb, I am going to make you regret every moment you spent trying to ruin me. I pressed the button, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was silence. Beautiful, haunting silence around us as I waited for the consequences to unfurl, and then there it was. The ping of a notification echoed through the air, and as we stood there, vulnerable and exposed in the dim alley, my plan was finally set into motion. Never again would he have the power to dictate my life, and tomorrow would be the dawn of his reckoning. Clara. He called, panic beginning to seep into his voice, but I merely turned away, the shadows swallowing me whole as I walked further down the alley, the sound of his pleading voice fading into nothingness behind me, a fitting end to the chapter of betrayal and the start of something new. The revenge was almost complete. Now it was time to watch the storm I created pull him under.